Hello and welcome to the Fit and Free podcast. This is a podcast for women who want it all, to feel strong and confident in their bodies, as well as enjoying a sneaky mug on a Friday night. I'm an exercise physiologist and sports nutritionist, here to teach you how to achieve your body goals without food and your body controlling your life. So let's jump in. Hello, you guys. Welcome back to another ep of the Fit and Free podcast. I am so excited to sit down and record today's episode because, as you already know by the title, I'm breaking down 30 lessons that I have learned over the last 30 years. And I think this is going to be my favorite podcast episode to date because when I was sitting down and planning out what I was going to say, I was like, holy crap, I have learned so much, especially in the last 5 years, because that's when I've gone ham on personal development in terms of doing courses, working with mentors, doing group coaching programs. And I'm actually really proud of the person who I have become. And I'm sitting in a lot of gratitude because I have put a lot of effort into my personal development, learning about myself, learning about my weaknesses, learning about my strengths, and really coming to a place of learning how to improve in all areas and not making things personal. Because a version of me was terrified of doing everything. I was so shy. I was so afraid. There was no way I would be sitting down doing this podcast. There is no way I would have been able to run my own successful online business. So I'm just sitting here in so much gratitude, just being holy shit, we did this and I'm excited about it. So I'm going to jump straight into the episode today because there is a lot. There is 30 things that I'm going to be breaking down. I'm going to be speaking to the lessons that I've learned, why it was important to me, and the main thing that I was able to take out of it and how it has affected more areas of my life. So, further ado, let's jump into it. Number 1. I love this one so much because if I told myself this 5 years ago, I would have been fuck no, absolutely not. You're not eating more. I'm terrified of that. I'm so terrified of gaining weight and all the things. And it's so crazy how I can come full circle with my first lesson that I want to speak to is doing a bulk earlier. Focus on building muscle before wanting to lose fat. And the reason why I say that is because over my experience, there was a good portion of my life where I was always trying to eat in a calorie deficit, always trying to lose weight. But I was never happy with my physique, my body, because it wasn't toned. I had never intentionally taken time out of a calorie deficit to intentionally build muscle. I always was in this yo-yo dieting phase of losing weight and then putting it back on, losing weight and putting it back on. And the reason why was in this cycle of losing weight and putting it back on is because I never actually changed the composition of my body. I never took the time and built muscle. All I did was these gym challenges, and all I did with gym challenges where it's focus on, getting the scale down by doing, HIIT, cardio, and then a little bit of strength training, and then, dropping your calories. So what I know now is dropping your calories and doing heaps of cardio and HIIT and those 45-minute gym sessions and focusing on losing weight. That's literally the definition of losing weight in the form of muscle and fat. So that's why you still look skinny fat anytime you finish a gym challenge. Your body composition, you don't look obviously different, even though the scale might say you dropped 5 kilos, but your body still looks the same. That's because you're not doing the right type of exercise to develop muscle. You're not eating the right macronutrients to make sure you've got nice shape to your body. And because you just get in the mindset of less food and more exercise is better. And that's actually doing the opposite that you want to your body if you want it to be toned. So that's definitely not lesson number 1 is increase your calories earlier, bulk earlier, build muscle earlier. Why? Because number 1, it's easier to build muscle when you're younger. Early teens is your prime time to build muscle. So if you can maximize muscle growth through that period of time, that's amazing. And the second thing is the more muscle you have, the more that you can eat. And this is why I see it all the time. It's like, people are always trying to eat in a calorie deficit and always trying to lose weight, but then they get to a point where the deficit stops working, and then they're exercising so much and they're eating low calories, and then all they experience is like easy weight gain and maybe thinking about food all the time, right? If you take the time to build muscle, come out of your calorie deficit, you can eat a hell of a lot more food, one, without gaining weight. And then if you do then want to do a fat loss phase again, then you can eat a high amount of calories. So you can start your fat loss phase on a much higher amount of calories and then reduce them, and your body composition is going to look way better. So that's lesson number 1, is build muscle earlier. Number 2 is follow through on the shit you say you're going to do. Your word is your promise. For so long, I lived a life of empty promises, and this was in all areas of my life, right? This was like, oh yeah, I'm going to go to the gym tomorrow, but then I slept in. It was, oh yeah, I'll put my washing away and it stays on my bed for 3 days. It was, oh yeah, I'll call you back, let's hang out. Never followed through on it, right? When I was able to shift and live and lead my life through a lens of, I'm going to do the things that I say that I'm going to do, my entire life changed. I grew a successful coaching business. My relationships became stronger and more connected. My body composition looks the best that it ever had. Because at the end of the day, if you say you're going to do something and then you don't do it, of course you can't trust yourself. And self-trust is everything when it comes to being successful in anything, right? Because if you can't trust yourself, then you're not going to be able to be consistent, and consistency is the thing that is going to get you to that successful place that you want. So number 2 is learning how to trust yourself in terms of being an integrous person, being in integrity. Follow through on the shit that you say that you're going to do, and your word is your promise. And when you do this, guys, watch your world change. It's unbelievable. Number 3 lesson I learned. You're not afraid of failing. You're afraid of what others will think of you when you fail. Stop caring what other people think of you. For so long, I was so ego-driven. I had my worth and my value tied into so many things external. Things like what my body composition looked like, a number on the scale, the size of my clothes, how good I was at things. So for example, for me, I was always the sporty one. I was always, succeeding with netball and hockey and OzTag, and I found a lot of myself and a lot of my pride in being the best. So for a long time, if I wasn't the best at something, I made that mean that I was shit, that I was failing, that I wasn't good enough. I couldn't handle people thinking, judging me and thinking that I was shit. I couldn't handle that, because what I made that mean, if I was bad at something, I was so afraid of the person over there looking at me being shit at something and being like, oh my God, she's pathetic. Oh my God, she's so shit. Oh my God, she's not good at anything. And now I can look at that and I can laugh a little bit, because I'm like, they don't give a fuck. They don't care if I'm good at something or not. It's all that internal story. But if we are living and leading our lives so fearful of what other people think of us, of course we're going to be paralyzed. Of course we're not going to be able to make the decisions that we want. Of course we're not going to be able to try new things and experience life in such a new way, because we're so terrified of the perceived failing. We're so afraid of what we're making that failure mean about ourselves and what other people are making that mean about us as well. So that is my next lesson, is stop caring about what other people think of you, because it's all in your head. Number 4 is it always takes longer than you think. And I had a really good conversation actually last week with my mentor specifically about this. And this is where it really solidified this for me, in terms of I put a lot of effort into things because I like things to be a certain way. Perfectionism tendencies come out sometimes for me, and that's where I have to learn to lean in and, use them as my superpower, but of course they can also be very derailing. But at the same time, it's because I like things to be fast, and I like things to be good, and I like things to be a high standard, and I like to be successful very quickly because of my old conditioning, right? Like if I'm not successful, then I'm not good enough. Even though I've sat in that and I have transcended those patterns and behaviors, sometimes the old trigger can come out, and this is how it played out for me. It was like I wanted to see immediate results. I wanted things to be fast, because if I didn't get that immediate success, I didn't get ultimately that instant gratification, a lot of the times my old pattern was, well, I'm failing. What's the point? I'm putting in so much effort. What is the point? And I would always self-sabotage. That would be my limitation to be consistent, because I would always give up when I was on the way to success. But because I didn't give myself enough time, and because I wasn't looking at the long game, I would more often give up before I was able to reach that full level of success that I really wanted to achieve. So this is how I learned this, was like success takes time. And when I was able to actually shift my mindset to I'm playing a 10-year game, I'm not playing a month game, things have become a lot easier and a lot lighter for me, because it's like, well, I know I'm going to be successful, and living from a place of my success is inevitable if I keep showing up and keep being consistent. Then it's no longer this emotional roller coaster of like, oh my God, I'm failing, I'm succeeding, I'm failing, I'm succeeding. It's now I can look at it of being like, yeah, I'm getting there. I'm just building. I'm building skills, I'm building habits, I'm building the mindset that I need in order to get there. And this is where a lot of people fall short, and myself included. I used to fall short. It's because I didn't give myself that time, and I wasn't playing long-term game. I was playing the month to month, and then feeling really shit about how shit I was and how I wasn't being successful. My mentor even pointed that out to me. She was like, Laura, you were doing all of the things. You've got to give yourself enough time. And that one conversation really anchored that into me, because I knew it was something that I had been working on for a while. But her saying that, I was like, that's it. That's so true. And like, yes, I'm learning and I'm integrating that at the moment. But now I can sit here and being like, I am really, like, I've learned how now, especially like with nutrition and exercise, I've learned now that if we're playing the long game, we are here for a long time. And like, I joke about, you see these people lifting weights on TV and they're like 70 years old and they're like hella inspiring. And I'm like, that's going to be me. I'm going to be on the news lifting weights when I'm 70. And now, because I'm living and operating from that place, nothing is like this, oh my God, I've got to do this in 12 weeks because of X. It's now, well, this is what I'm doing for the rest of my life, and I'm just going to ride the wave and then really focus on the small wins every single month, like celebrating my progress in the gym and celebrating the fact that I can do 10 chin-ups now, and celebrate the fact that I can, my deadlift has improved so much. And that's what I really anchor into, because I know it's all of these little 1%ers that have absolutely snowballed for me, and I've already seen that. And I've got so much evidence of that, like with my nutrition and exercise, but now also my business. Like all the 1%ers snowball and add up over time. And it sounds cliche, but it's so true. And that's why one of the biggest lessons is it always does, and it probably always will, take longer than you think. The next one is be compassionate towards yourself. I actually learned this one only this year, and because I did a personal development course at the start of this year, and it was all mindset based, really focusing on like really getting to know who I am at a core level, like my identity, my values, who I am, my strengths, my weaknesses, all the things that I already kind of spoke to. But it was like this course specifically really taught me how judgmental I was on myself. Like, I used to shame myself for fucking everything. One little thing I would do wrong, and I would to go into, like, why the fuck do you do this, Laura? Like, why do you keep doing this? So much shame, so much judgment in towards myself. And what I didn't realize, it was this judgment and this criticism that I had towards myself was paralyzing me from making solid decisions and therefore being able to grow and move forward. I was stuck in this paralyzation because I was like just judging myself and making myself, I would sit and think about a mistake that I made, and I would sit and think about it for 3 fucking days, because it's like, oh my God, like, you're so shit, you keep doing this. Like, ultimately, like, you're just not good enough. You're failing all of the things. But when I was able to realize that, number one, I was doing this, I was then able to bring awareness, and then I was able to change the story. And instead of going to shame, I was able to use curiosity and compassion to be like, well, why? Why are you doing this? Like, why do you keep doing this behavior? What haven't you learned yet? And what is the thing that's actually the lesson in this that you're not listening to? What is this mistake that you've made that you need to learn from, and then choose differently next time? Because when you fall down into a space of just shame and judgment, you're not able to look at your mistakes as a lesson. Because what you do, you just make it all the reasons why that you're not good enough and that you're failing. When you're able to actually look at your mistakes, and then when you're actually able to take responsibility for your shit instead of making it personal and making it mean something about you, you can make better decisions, you can learn from your mistakes and actually improve, and therefore you're going to be on a more successful path. So that's why number 6, the lesson is learn how to be compassionate towards yourself and stop judging the fuck out of you, because when you do that, that's when we get stuck in, let's use binge eating, for example. Like, if we just sit there and shame ourselves and criticize ourselves for doing it, then that's when we're going to be over and being fixated on it and think about it for 3 days straight without having the power. Literally, we're giving our own power away to it. So therefore, we don't have the power to change. We don't have the power to choose differently. We don't have the power to start fueling our bodies correctly and what it needs. Obviously, if we're binge eating, we're not eating enough, or we got too many restrictions in our diet, then we lose the power, and we're giving our power away to that because we sit there and judge and shame ourselves. So that's why compassion was a massive lesson for me. The next lesson that I have learned is do shit before you teach it. And this can go for any area of life, but I want to speak to this one specifically, like in the coaching industry. Like, I see so many online coaches teaching nutrition and exercise, but yet they have a poor relationship with food. And it grinds my gears when people are giving advice on things that they haven't fully transcended yet. Like, a big one also is like body image. Like, I see these coaches teach on body image, but then yet they are still having regular bad body image days. Like, if you haven't mastered something yourself, I don't fully believe that you can fully teach it. Well, yes, of course, like, you can go to university and you can learn all the tools X, Y, and Z. Like, of course, I did that as well. But then, like, there's a level of mastery and there's a different layer of coaching that you can give someone if you have actually been through it and transcended it yourself. And that's something that I always look for in my mentors is, like, I've worked with a lot of mentors now. Like, I'm obsessed. Like, you'll never see me without a coach in my life. And like, after, always investing in myself and working with like nutrition coaches, exercise coaches, and business coaches, like, I have now realized who to look for in a coach. And I'm looking for the ones that are completely modeling exactly the way that I want to live and lead my life. Like, for example, I worked with one business coach and she still struggles a lot with her sense of self-worth and confidence and all the things. And I was like, I don't want to be taught by someone who still has all of those wounds, because that's not who I want to be. I want to be someone who is full in their power, full confidence, full, owning their shit and selling and changing people's lives and helping people with their nutrition and exercise. So therefore, like, if I'm learning, like, how to be a leader and all of these things from someone who still thinks that they lack a sense of self-worth, like, that's not who I want to be learning from. So that was a really big lesson for me in ultimately, like, choosing mentors, but also myself as a coach. I could really reflect on it. It's like, I would never teach something that I fully hadn't grasped or fully hadn't worked through myself. And to be honest with you guys, that's for a really long period of time. When I first started my nutrition and exercise coaching business, like I didn't really do much body image stuff at all because I still was facing bad body image. And it wasn't until like I fully transcended body image was when I added the modules and when I really started teaching it inside the Fit and Free Academy, because I had mastered it myself. And I think there's so much power in that, in terms of it's just like I said, a different level of coaching. So, and I think you can apply this to anything, right? It's like if you are an online fitness coach and you are teaching things that, you know, you feel like you're still struggling with, like stop teaching it, start learning it, and then teach it, because like it's so much easier to teach from a level of mastery in comparison to someone, you know, you're rocking and being like, oh my God, I'm struggling with this too, I don't know what to say to that person. Because at the end of the day, it's out of integrity. It's not, you know, you're not going to be able to help that person as well as what someone else who had already mastered it could be. So I think there's a lot of power in that, and just a really solid lesson for me specifically is like making sure you're learning off people who you like, who's modeling the life that you really want to live. The next one is know your limits and say no. For such a long time, I was such a yes man, and that's why I got myself into spaces where I was like working 7 days a week. I was running 2 Instagrams, trying to do a YouTube channel, trying to do a podcast all at once, because I was like, yes, I can do all of these things, but I couldn't do all of these things because I kept reaching like a creative burnout. I kept resenting things. I kept wanting to have a break. I kept, you know, reaching this almost level of burnout. So a really important lesson in all of that is like, it's okay to say no. You're not a bitch. You're not selfish. You're not anything. Because this is something I talk about a lot now, and it's only because of everything that I've been through. It's like, you cannot help other people if your cup is empty. You cannot be a good friend, a good mum, a good coach. You cannot do anything if your cup is only got like a tablespoon of water in it. So this is why this lesson was huge for me, because when I learned how to fill up my cup, know my limits, and learn how to say no, I've been way more consistent in all areas of my life. And I love this whole way of living in terms of quality over quantity. It took me a while to learn that, but now I have really anchored into this, and I'm so much more happy because the things that I'm doing are at such a high level, like a better standard, which makes me really happy because, you know, perfectionism things, it's like, it's really nice to be able to do things better instead of spreading myself thin all over so many different things. So that was a really, really important lesson that I had to learn. The next one is, you actually have to put effort into being happy. You need to learn how to fulfill your needs in a positive way. For a really long time, like, I had a real scarcity mindset. I was, you know, I had a lot of money stories, and that's something that I've definitely had to work on in business in terms of, you know, you got to have an abundant mindset because it's so much easier to make decisions. But like, this was leaking into other areas of my life. Like, I had this pattern where I had to work X amount of hours, and I can't, you know, take an hour off in the middle of the day because I had to work. Because I had to work X amount of hours in order to make X amount of money because that's going to make me successful. And what I know to be true, because I had all these limiting beliefs and I had this real solid scarcity mindset, I was neglecting my human needs, which ultimately kept making me fall into depressive patterns. Like, for me, I know I need a lot of variety in my life. I need a lot of excitement. I need a lot of adventure. Like, my main values are adventure and freedom. And if I'm sitting at my computer all day, every day, just like writing copy or, you know, planning out podcasts and planning out content, well, yes, I love it. That's not freedom and that's not adventure. And my third most important value is fun. I love fun, to have fun. Like, I'm a little kid at heart, right? And so you can see if I'm constantly working from this place of scarcity because I think that I need to work X amount of hours, sit behind my computer, type all these things in order to be successful, then adventure, freedom, and fun, I'm not even acknowledging those things. So therefore, because I'm not fulfilling my needs in a positive way, I get emotional about it. And I get sad, I get depressed, I get angry, I can't make decisions. So for a really solid period of my life, my pattern was I went to food. I was an emotional eater. I'm definitely not that anymore because I've learned now that I need to fulfill my needs in a really positive way, because otherwise I fall into those depressive patterns and then I fall into food. So this is why, like, I'm quite passionate about this because, like, my mental health, I don't say this to be like, oh, poor me, like, whatever. I say this because, like, I honestly have struggled with my mental health for a really long period of time. And what I know to be true is that I have to put in a lot of effort to make myself feel happy every day. Like, it's not just a default setting for me personally. I don't know if this is true for everyone. I'm not sure, but for me, I know it to be true. Like, I'm fucking grumpy in the morning, so you don't want to be around me. Like, and that's why I fell in love with exercise, because exercise was the thing that, like, really, like, filled up my cup and made me feel better. Then, of course, I went through my exercise addiction and all the things, but that's not for here. But the moral of this story is, like, the lesson I learned is, like, you have to put effort into looking at your limiting beliefs that are causing you to stay stuck in these rigid cycles that are actually not allowing you to fulfill your needs in a really positive way. Like, I had to allow myself and give myself permission to do the work, do it really well, but then also have so much fun and have adventure and freedom in my life. Like, I need to have both, because if I personally don't have both, is when I feel really, like, depressed. Like, I get into these phases of, like, literally, like, not wanting to get out of bed, and I get into, like, nothing I do will make me feel happy. And sometimes it gets pretty bad where I'm like, I'll go to the gym and I'm just like, I just don't want to be there completely. And then it's just like, it's quite difficult, to be completely honest. And, like, especially when I'm in around my period, like, the last 2 weeks I've been really focusing on filling up my cup, like, literally every single day, because, like, otherwise, if I'm not actively doing that, then I suffer. So that was the next lesson, is make sure you take the time to look at your limiting beliefs and how you're living and leading your life that are affecting you to be able to fulfill your needs in a really positive way. My next lesson is your worth and value have nothing to do with anything external. Your body, the scale, your success in your career, anything. Like, I already spoke to this one a little bit before, in terms of I used to, like, my worth and my value, like, I was only ever good enough if I was the fit one, if I was the strong one, if I was, like, the best at anything. So there was a lot of my value and worth was tied into things external. And when I learned this through one of my mindset mentors that I had, like, I remember having a conversation with her, and I used to get triggered. This is a while ago now. But I used to have these one pair of denim shorts, and anytime I put the denim shorts on, I would either be, like, really happy because I was like, yes, I'm succeeding, my body is good, or if I put them on and they were tight, shit hit the fan. I would, like, have a spiral, a meltdown. I would be, like, in tears that these shorts felt tight because of what I was making it mean about myself, because I had so much of my worth and value tied up into these things. So when I was able to learn how to detach all of this from everything and learn that I'm fucking amazing just sitting here being who I am, and learning that your worth and value comes from your vibe, it comes from who you are, it comes from, you know, your energy and the way you show up and the way that your aura, basically, and the way that you can have a conversation with someone. Instead, like, and then you think about it, it's like, well, if you are, you know, you only feel good enough if your body looks a certain way, and then you're depressed and, like, irritable and moody about it, like, no one's going to want to be around you. Like, that happened to me, and my partner, honestly, was one of the main reasons why I got help with all of this, is because he was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, you're pushing me away because, like, you're just, you know, you're not a vibe. You're not fun to be around. Like, you're always moody, you're depressed and all of these things. And, like, that honestly was, like, the reason why it pushed me to get help with all of this. But then and so therefore the lesson in all of that is, like, your worth and value have nothing to do with anything external. It has everything to do with who you fucking are. The next one is prioritize your form and film your workouts. Literally every time I go into the gym now, I'll film my lifts, my compound lifts, because, like, the better your form is, the more you're going to be able to lift, you're going to get less injuries, and therefore those two things combined, you're going to get stronger, and if you get stronger, you're going to build more muscle. And if you build more muscle, then you're going to have a better body composition. At any given body weight, if you've got more muscle, that means you'll have less fat, therefore you'll look more toned. Right? Someone weighs 60 kilos, so two people weigh 60 kilos. Someone has a body fat percentage of 17%, and someone is the same weight, 30 kilos, and has a body fat percentage of 30%. Right? They both weigh 60 kilos, but who do you think is going to look better? The one with the 18% body fat or the one with 30? Of course, the one with 18%. So, the 18% body fat, but they're the same weight as this person because they've got more muscle. They're going to look toned. They're going to look lean. They're going to look fit. And that's why form and, like, learning your lifts and focusing on that as early as possible is really important, because, like I already said, like, the better you are at deadlifting, the better you are at hip thrusting and squats, is the more eventually that you're going to lift. And if you just keep trying to add more weight to the bar without actually nailing your technique, you're going to hit a plateau. You're either going to hurt yourself, or you're going to get a point where you just can't progress anymore because your form is shit. That happened to me for a long period of time, especially with my squat. Like, I never took the time because I got really tight hip flexors and shit dorsiflexion in my ankles, and my glutes, because my hip flexors are quite tight, my glutes were quite weak because I could never get into, like, the full range of motion. But so for a really long time, like, I didn't address it. I was just, like, trying to add more weight without actually stopping, pulling back a little bit and focusing my form to then progress forward, because, like, I was making it mean, like, if I'm not progressing, I'm not seeing results. If I'm not adding weight, then I'm not going to get to the body that I want. But that kept happening to me. I kept getting to a point where I was like, fuck, I just can't lift anymore, because it's like my back keeps getting sore. So that's something that I wish I did so much earlier, was, like, get rid of the noise in terms of, like, working on your technique is progression. Getting better at your lifts is progression, because when you stop and take the time to improve your lifts, it's like short-term losses for long-term gains. So, like, how is that not progression? Well, yes, you might not be adding, like, you know, you might go for 3 weeks without actually, like, adding weights or reps to the bar, but improving your technique, like getting a better range of motion, getting lower in your squat and getting a better lockout in your hip thrust is also a form of progressive overload. So it actually is progression. So that's why it's important to be able to reframe what progression actually is in the gym and focus on the shit that actually matters, instead of allowing our ego to drive the show and being like, I have to do X, Y, and Z in order to be successful. So that's the next lesson, is prioritize your form. My next lesson is effort is perfection. For a really long time, I was stuck in the cycle of, if it's not perfect, then it's not good enough. Like, I used to write stuff on pieces of paper, and, like, I'd be, you know, a quarter of a way through, and I would rip it out because I was like, it's not good enough. It's not perfect. And this, of course, was leaking into other areas of my life, left, right, and center. Things like with my nutrition, things like with my exercise, especially in the gym. Like, I would get so hard on myself, like, if a lift wasn't perfect, if I didn't feel it in the perfect muscles, if I didn't get the right weights, or if I didn't get, you know, wasn't able to add weights or add reps, like, if it wasn't perfect, then I just made it mean that I was shit. I'm not good enough. And then again, like I already spoke to, like, I would just fall down into these negative shame spirals, and I would hold on to it for like 3 days. And I look back on that and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I used to do that to myself. Like, so harsh and so mean. Anyway, and so, like, I want to pull out the lesson of that is, like, what I have learnt is what I had to do was I had to channel my perfectionism tendencies. I had to realize that effort is perfection. So putting in 100% effort was good enough. And that's why I had to learn that, like, if I wasn't at the point of success that I wanted, and it wasn't, I wasn't at my perfect point yet, therefore I wasn't shit. That just means I have to get better. I have to compete with myself, and I had to put in more effort to learn the skills, learn from my mistakes, choose differently to get to that successful point. Because when I was in that constant, things aren't good enough, perfection cycle, I would always say things like, well, what's the point? I'm putting in so much effort with nothing to show for it. Like, I'm running up an uphill battle. Like, this is so hard. Why is it easy for her? She's so lucky. All of the projections came out. So when I was able, like I said, to channel me putting in my top effort is always going to be enough. And then now I get hard on myself if I don't put my top effort in. If I don't try hard enough, that's when I'll get hard on myself and not like go into the crazy judgment shame spirals. So it's like, well, no, Laura, like, you have to stop and you have to take your time and you have to get better at it. And again, give yourself space. It doesn't have to be immediate. You have to give yourself more time to get better and then build the skill and then continue to be able, because as you get better at things, like, you can put in more, like, your output is better, because, like, at the beginning, everything is so messy and you make so many mistakes. And, if you can ride that wave and then build the mindset of being like, I'm learning from all of this, instead of like what I used to do, like make it all the reasons why you're wrong and failing, and, the self-sabotage of running up hills, it's so hard, it's easy for her. Like, when you can go through the messy phase, like, it's like an exponential curve, because once you get better at stuff, you don't have to, the effort that you put in, because you're better, you're going to get a faster result. But I look at this in content creation, and it's like, you put in the effort, and this is why you see people that are, that are successful. Like, look at Alex Hormozi right now. It's like, he's just boomed. He's just so successful, but he is not successful. He's not an overnight success. He's a 10-year success. Like, he has been putting in the effort, learning, putting in all the time to go, whoop, and now he's super successful. But that's because he was able to channel and put in all the effort when no one was watching. And that's something that I have learned. It's like, you've got to put in the reps, you've got to put in the time, you've got to do things over and over again, and you've got to put in the effort to achieve anything. And therefore, don't allow the perfectionism thing to sabotage your results. Allow the perfectionism things to drive you forward and utilize your effort to get to that standard. And then as you get better at things, the standard can go higher and higher and higher, especially because you can put less time into all of it. So that's the next lesson. My next lesson is comparison can be your greatest teacher. Detach and use it as expansion. It's possible for her. That means it's possible for me too. What are they doing that I'm not? What skill do I still need to learn? And I absolutely really love speaking to this one, because I used to be someone who would sit on social media and like just compare myself to everybody. Oh my God, she's so fit. Oh my God, she lifts so much. Oh my God, she's eating that and I'm eating this. That means what I'm doing is wrong. Like, I get it. I have been there. I also, had struggled with my body, and I struggled with my own sense of self-worth. And ultimately, like, this is where it comes from. Like, if we are not solid in who we are, if we have our worth and our value attached to anything external, aka our body, of course, then if we then get on social media and we compare ourselves to somebody else and we think, well, I want to be that. Therefore, what you're doing to yourself is you're making yourself wrong. You're making yourself wrong as what you are now. And this is where, like, comparison can, if we don't have that inner sense of self and we don't have that inner sense of worth and value, it's really easy to fall into a rabbit hole and compare yourself to everyone online and make it mean all the reasons why you're shit. So this was a great lesson for me. Like, I used to get triggered left, right, and center. Like, I used to have to unfollow people, especially business coaches that were making all this money. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not making money and I'm not like them. All of the things. So it can be like in any element of your life. But when I was able to look at these people as expanders, I was able to look at these people, I'm like, holy fuck, like this gets to be possible for me as well. It's my evidence that it's possible. Then I have to think, well, what are they doing that I'm not? And this is where I had to learn not to play the victim, not to have a victim mentality, being like, it's so lucky for her, it's easy, she's so privileged, she's so lucky, like all of the victim mentality stories that I used to project left, right, and center. Well, it's like, well, actually, let's have a look at this and what actually am I not taking responsibility for in my life to get me to that spot? And I had to look at it. Like, let's look at my body composition. For so long, I wasn't doing the right things. Yet I was, sulking and being in a pity party when I see these fit girls lifting like weight and being like, fuck, I want to be like her. But I wasn't putting in the time. I wasn't showing up in the gym consistently. I wasn't eating enough food because I was like so afraid of, all of the things. So again, I have a lot of compassion towards myself in that space, but at the same time, like I was allowing fear to run the show. And because I was allowing fear to run the show, I wasn't able to make solid decisions on the things that I actually needed to do. Like, for a perfect example of this was I didn't reach out for help for a really long time because my ego got in the way. It was like, you can do it yourself. You've got this. But like, I'd be solid for a week and then I would get triggered and then I would go back into restriction. Or I would get triggered and then I would go back into a binge eating episode. And I would just get into these cycles. But then like anytime I went to go get help, like I would go I remember going onto my first coach's Instagram page and then I'd go onto her website and I would read through it like 10 times. And I was like, nah, I don't want to, I'm afraid. I'm afraid of what she'll think of me. I'm afraid of investing and spending money on myself. I'm afraid of having to be open and honest with her, right? There was so much fear in all of it. And that was like, it was such a big learner for me because I was allowing, at the end of the day, like I wasn't stepping up and I wasn't taking responsibility to get where I wanted to be because I was allowing fear to drive the show and I was utilizing all these basic like excuses and playing the victim and being like, poor me, you're never going to get there, all of the things. But when I was literally able to shift this and I like my current mentor now, like I love her so much because she models a life that I want to live. And I've learned so much from her in terms of the way that she owns her shit, the way that she takes responsibility. And, if there's an uncomfortable conversation, she'll have it. And she's just such a good leader and all of the things. So it's like when you can start looking at these people and being like, whoa, holy shit, like they're doing this. This gets to be an expansion for me and this gets to be my evidence of when I align all the things, when I start doing the things that they're doing is then when I'm going to get the same result. And it's a big thing is like people are not doing the right thing with their nutrition and exercise and then they have a lot of fear into all the reasons why they can't sign up for a program or they can't invest in help or they can't, they say things like it's so expensive or it's not the right time or I've got this current commitment. It's like basically all these things are just internal excuses for a reason why you don't actually have to take responsibility and take action on change. Because at the end of the day, change is hard. It absolutely is. Getting outside of your comfort zone is fucking terrifying. I get it. I've been there. I'm in it every single day. But it's like if I, didn't push myself to be outside of my comfort zone, I wouldn't be running a successful business. I wouldn't be traveling the world with my fiancé. I wouldn't have a fiancé. I would not be so freaking confident and solid in my body and so strong and happy and energized. Like I wouldn't have any of it. And that's why this was the lesson, because as soon as we start comparing ourselves to someone else, we give our power away. And we start to, take it personal, make everything mean something about ourselves instead of like stepping up and, fixing our shit, fixing the binge eating, fixing the lack of progression in the gym, fixing, the wrong, like not eating enough and throughout the day and all of the things. It's like, if we're not fixing and owning our shit because we're so terrified of change, then we can't sit in that victim mentality because we're actually not taking responsibility for our own things. So that's a huge lesson. The next lesson, number 13, is you absolutely can heal your body image. I had a conversation the other day and someone said, having bad body image is just normal. But like, here's the thing. It's normal because people have normalized it for you. When you start spending time with people who do not have bad body image, all of a sudden, bad body image is no longer normalized. And yes, while the statistics, sway towards bad body image is normal, like 85% of women have bad body image, like hand on my heart, and I'm not saying this to gloat, I'm saying this because when you do the internal work, when you detach yourself, your value, your worth from your body, bad body image goes away. When you start aligning your exercise and your nutrition in alignment with your goals, and you do it for a long period of time, your body composition absolutely changes. And like, it's when you do the internal work and when you are consistent for a long period of time, like, I haven't had a bad body image day, and I can't even remember the last time I had a bad body image day. Well, yes, to be honest, like, I'll get a thought in terms of like being in a calorie surplus, like my stomach, there is more like body fat on my stomach than there was before. And like, I know a version of me like 5 years ago, there's no way I would have been able to handle that. But like, I look at it, I'm like, there's some body fat. That's not a bad thing. Like, I'm eating in a calorie surplus, like it's expected. It doesn't mean anything. It means I've got a little bit more body fat. Like, I'm not taking it personal. I'm not making it wrong. I'm making it actually like it's a good thing because that means I'm moving forward towards my goal. So yeah, like, have a thought, but then it's like, the reason why we get bad body image, right, is because we shame ourselves and we go into this spiral and we make it mean all the reasons why we're wrong, and it triggers our lack of worth and our, people are not going to love me, people are not going to accept me, I'm never going to find a partner. Like, at the end of the day, that's where bad body image is coming from. It's triggering such a deeper level of, of human needs. But when you actually do work in and around this and you reframe it and you build your worth in and around things external, like, body image is no longer an issue. So that's why I want to normalize that you can heal your body image and you don't have to have bad body image days when you have all your ducks in a row and like when you do the work. And like, I'm going to be honest, like, this took me like 3 years. 3 years of consistency of changing the way that I speak to myself, like learning my triggers, reframing my beliefs, also having a nutrition and exercise strategy that actually got me a toned body, right? And again, it's not a 12-week thing. Like, this is something that I've been working towards for like 3 years now, like, after years of restriction and over exercising. It's like, it really can be something that you can fully transcend. So that is lesson 13, is you absolutely can heal your body image. The next lesson that I have learned is commitment, and what commitment actually really means. It's, at the end of the day, it's like, you really can do anything in your life when you believe in yourself and when you actually commit to something. For a long time, like, I was living my life, I'm like, yeah, I'm committed, but like, when things got hard was when I would be throw in the towel, being like, oh my god, it's so hard, I can't do it anymore, oh my god, I just can't do it. And like, for a long period of time, like, things, like, I wasn't successful in a lot of things because I actually wasn't committed to it. Because there's a difference between I'm going to say that I'm going to do something and actual commitment. And when you learn to actually commit to something, that means that you're going to commit regardless if it is hard, regardless if it is you feel like you're failing, regardless if you are succeeding. Like, sure, it's really easy to stick to something when you're seeing immediate results. Like, on the other side, duality, it's really easy to stop doing something when you're not seeing any results. And that's the difference between someone who is committed and to someone who is a dabbler. And when you're able to actually commit to something is when you are going to see amazing results, is because you're actually going to be able to put in the time and be consistent for a longer period of time than most. Because at the end of the day, people are not willing to do the same thing over and over and over again for an extended period of time. Because it's not, it's not sunshine and rainbows. There's no gold medal every week, right? And because we're in a society that has been conditioned to that, right? Like instant gratification, there's a lack of commitment in a lot of people's lives. So that's why this lesson has been so profound for me in terms of the difference between commitment and the difference between I'm going to say that I'm going to do something. Because the moment I said I am actually going to commit to this, my world has changed. That's when I have been able to do things like travel the world whilst running my business. Things like feeling really happy and confident in my body. Being able to go to Italy and eat pasta completely guilt-free and know it's not going to impact my body. Like all of these things, because I've committed to the 1%ers every single day, how I live and lead my life. My non-negotiables, going to the gym, eating enough protein every day. Like it's actually quite easy when you think about it, but because people are not working from that level of commitment, then it's really easy to fall off the bandwagon. So this episode is getting really long. So what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to split it in two, which is really exciting and which is super fun. So I'm going to end halfway. So this one, number 15, is going to be the last one for this episode. And then we're going to jump into the next episode with the next 15. I loved this lesson. And when I was able to live in this way of thinking, it freed up so much of my mental time, capacity, and confidence ultimately. So number 15 is make the decision. You will probably get it wrong, and that is gold. I used to be the person that would go back and forth. Should I do this? Should I do this? Should I eat these calories? Should I reduce my calories? Should I change my training program? Should I be doing this? Should I be doing this? And then it would go into every area, leak into every area of my life. Like when I would go shopping, I'd be like, oh my God, should I get the brown ones? Should I get the black ones? Should I get the green bag? Should I get the blue bag? It would always be this constant debate in myself because I didn't trust myself to make a solid decision. And because I had so much fear, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to make the wrong one. Oh my God, I'm going to do the wrong thing. And because I would always then make that personal because I had so much judgment upon myself, then it was really hard for me to sit in that because then I would be fixated on a few days. So when I was able to reframe this and when I learned the lesson of make the decision, you're probably going to get it wrong. And that is a good thing. My world changed. Because now I can make a decision really quickly because of being able to be reflective on being did I make the right one or did I make the wrong one? And if I made the right one, fucking amazing. If I made the wrong one, cool. What do I need to learn from that? What is the lesson? What am I still not listening to in order to move forward? And a big part of this for me, definitely because of my scarcity mindset that I used to have, there was so much scarcity in everything, it leaked into my nutrition, into the way that I bought clothes and things, the way I went shopping, the way that I went grocery shopping. When I was constantly, going from a place of I can't spend too much money in that scarcity mindset, then it really impacted my ability to then make decisions. Then, because of that, because then if I made a bad decision, then I would be in the shame spiral and the pity party for 3 days because oh my God, you wasted money, you don't like what you bought, and the whole shebang. But now that I've learned that I can, literally every single decision that I make, it doesn't really matter if it's right or wrong because it's either success or it's either a lesson. And then that the power is in the lesson. Then you get to learn, okay, cool, that's not what I want. That's not what I need to do next time. I need to choose differently. How cool that you then get to use that to propel yourself forward to be even more successful. That's so good. So powerful. So, my loves, if you love this episode, please open Apple Podcasts, scroll down the bottom, and there's a review section. Give it a 5-star if you love it. Because the reason why is it really, really helps me grow this channel. And I want to get this podcast into as many ears as possible because we are stopping the bad body image day, being afraid of food, and getting strong AF. So if you could do that, that's a massive value exchange because I do put a lot of time and effort into sitting down, planning these episodes, and then filming the episodes, and then getting my editor to edit the episodes, and then the next person writes up the spiel. There's a lot of steps that go into this podcast. So if you could please, as a value exchange, take the time, open the app, scroll down to the bottom, write the review, what you think, and also send me a DM on Instagram because I love hearing from you guys and I love to know who's listening. And I would appreciate that so much. Anyway, thank you so much for being here. I love this episode and I'm so excited to get into the next one because I'm going to finish off the next 15 lessons that I have learnt from 30 years. Bye! The number one challenge that all my clients face before we start working together is a lack of clarity on how much and what to eat to lose weight. Often they are making two huge mistakes, constantly trying to skip meals or eat under 1,600 calories. Secondly, only allowing themselves bad foods like chocolate on the weekend, but end up binging, all to tell themselves they're going to start again on Monday. If you feel like you have tried every diet under the sun and still can't figure out what to eat to achieve your weight loss goals, take my free 2-minute quiz. You can find the link in the show notes down below. And it will help you figure out exactly what you're doing wrong with your nutrition and exercise and exactly what to do to fix it so that you can finally be confident in your body and achieve your weight loss goals.